Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Yeah, so we got the best stage here, like very loud, in the middle of everything, but we're gonna get it work. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you about something that I love. It's really how you create a culture inside your organization where people can really grow on the long term. So just to start, who is managing engineers here? Okay. And your teams, are you like below 15 people or below 15? Okay. And above 15? Okay. Cool. Yeah, so performance is a topic that people talk a lot about, but then when you really want to enforce it, it's something extremely difficult. It's basically when you start to add management and like some those type of processes to your company. And I will tell you about my experience bringing this into a box. Where we started, we were completely noobs in terms of management. The 4 co-founders of Box were 19 when they started the company. I stayed 8 years over there. We grew the company to 1,400 people. And we had to learn everything about management. And a lot of the best practices I will show you today come actually from Google. Because at some point we got the luxury of hiring a VP of engineering from Google, Samuel Schillace, who was the creator of Google Doc and the head of Google Apps at Google. So we brought a lot of those best practices, and Google has spent a lot of time to think about performance, and we adapted it to really make something that worked for us. So about me, I spent 8 years at Box. And I came back to France 2 years ago, and now I help startups at The Family to help them with growth. So like when the CTO or the CEO have problems with management, how to put layers of management or stuff like this. And my current project is with a Base Impact, where a non-profit startup building technology to help social issues. And in France, we build a web app to fight unemployment, which is like the biggest problem in France. Okay, so to start, the big pillars of a good engineering cultures is threefold. So first, we have a culture of ownership. It's really how when you grow, you allow your team to really feel empowered. It's always a very difficult phase to go through, because usually when you start and you are the CTO, you know all the tech, and you check everything. For example, you will do code review of all new pull requests in your company, and that doesn't scale. I have a lot of things to tell you about what worked or didn't work to go through this phase, but it's kind of another topic. But first, you need all your employees to feel they really have a say, and they really can take a lot of actions to make an impact. The second big pillar is a culture of feedback and benevolent communication. You cannot really go into performance and ask a lot of effort and work from your people if you are not benevolent, and if you don't care very deeply about them, about helping them having fun, about helping them grow on the long term. And this culture is really what you need to have from the beginning. The challenge is often that co-founders don't have a great culture of feedback together. For example, the CEO will spend too much time telling the CTO that they are below the expectations. So you need to fix this before you can really start to demand performance from the rest of the company. And the last pillar is really this culture of performance I will tell you about today, which is something you need when you start to grow, hire a lot of people, and then a lot of different teams have different dynamics, different cultures, and you need to make sure that everyone is empowered as much as possible, that the bar is the same for everyone, that performance is rewarded the same between different teams. So I will tell you about this today. Everything that has to do with those type of processes, you need to add them at some point. Usually, it will come when you have a first layer of management between like 20, 30 people. Anything that has to do with culture, with politics, with dynamics in the team, if you don't fix it at the beginning, it gets very, very hard to change. So it's a problem that people always address too late. And The problem I see often is the CTO is too focused on technology and doesn't realize that their goal is to become more VP of engineering and make sure that the culture is really top-notch in the company. So usually the problem you have with performance and performance expectation is from the prima donna death spiral. So you hire excellent people, very smart, typically like a PhD from MIT. They are extremely smart. 90% of the time they are right. They can produce amazing code very fast. But 10% of the time, they are assholes. They don't want to listen to the rest of the team. They don't want to take someone else's solution. But they are still very good in some ways, and you accept this type of behavior, and then it gives a very bad signal to the rest of the company because it tells, hey, it's actually okay to be an asshole sometime. And this kind of things, I think everyone that has done a little bit of management has experienced this. And it's the type of things you want to kill, but setting very clear performance expectations. Another problem I see very often is a title confusion. When your company is 3-4 years old, you have the old-timers, early engineers, like me, for example, at Box, who did amazing things at the beginning. They built the first prototype, and then they kind of like sleep on their laurels a little bit. They are not as engaged as before, but they still have a lot of credentials in the company. And new people that are hired from great company. So at some point, we started to hire senior software engineer from Google, for example, and they are like a little bit proud or not arrogant, but like, hey, I come from Google. I am certainly above other people. And then you have to kind of define a rule so that old-timers and newcomers can really be treated in a fair way. So the solutions. You need to have extremely clear standards for performance, and I will tell you a lot about how to do this. You need your managers then to spend time on focusing on performance. The issue about managers is that the real goal of a manager is to be a people manager, so it's to spend time about people, hiring, growing, and firing. Anything else about project management should be done with Scrum or Agile methodology. Anything with technology, architecture decisions should be delegated to the team. A manager should spend ideally all her time on people management. So it means doing a one-on-one with everyone in the team every week or 2 weeks. It means spending a lot of time evaluating people's performance, giving them feedback, and preparing performance reviews and stuff like this. Then, you need to have this process of evaluation and reward. I will tell you more about it. And the hardest part is to be very tough on bad performance. When you start a company, you actually, it's the problem we had. You are kind of nice. You hire people. They trust you. You like them. Or they were good at some point, and you start to be a little bit lenient and start to accept bad performance. And you always hope, like, okay, maybe it will get better later. And actually, it never gets better later if you don't address it. And each time you remove someone with bad performance, the team actually is very happy after. And it's something that you really need to teach your managers very early on. Okay, so when you start to put processes about performance, they need to be extremely transparent so that everyone knows where the bar is and how they will be evaluated. It's very tough when someone works their ass off and they thought they would be rewarded, and at the end they don't get a promotion or they don't get a bonus because the expectations were not clear. And obviously fairness, you want to treat everyone the same way, which is not that easy, especially, for example, when you have a crazy hiring market with the salaries going up 10% every year. Then how do you deal with salaries between old people, new people, all this kind of stuff? And a good performance process can really help you fix this. Okay, so I will go through all the little details about how to do this efficiently. Okay, Performance review. To evaluate performance, you need to evaluate versus a bar that you define, and for this you need to create levels. So here are the standard levels in Silicon Valley, for example, like junior dev, senior dev, staff, and then a principal. What is important is that people can go on the individual track or on the manager track, and they are rewarded the same. So the salary or the stock option of a senior manager is the same as a staff engineer, for example. Those levels, they correspond to, it's not just an abstract title, it's about impact on the company. So each level is supposed to have a very specific type of impact. When you are software engineer, junior, you just have impact on your own work. Senior, you start to have impact on your team. Staff is a very high bar. Very few people are staff. Staff is you're able to work between different teams. You can deal with complex dependencies between teams. You can help, for example, do big refactorings that impact multiple people, and you need a leadership. You need to be able to convince people to negotiate between teams. Principal, extremely high bar. That was my title at Box. At principal, you're supposed to have an impact on the entire company. So what does a principal do? For example, you are going to help your company move from a monolithic stack, whatever, like PHP, to a nicely service-oriented architecture running on containers. That's the type of project that a principal is supposed to do. What people are lacking usually is this vision about how far they can go. And when you go very far, for example, a distinguished engineer, you have to have an impact on the entire industry. So distinguished is what I wanted to become when I was principal. It was my next level. But distinguished is basically you have invented Python or you invented Docker. So then when you realize this, we realize, oh shit, maybe I am a kick-ass developer. I know my technologies very well, but there's so much more I can do. Then that is the first thing when you put performance, when you put titles. The first thing you need to tell your people is to inspire them about having much more impact and creating a very clear vision about what this impact looks like. Okay, so then to define those different levels, you create basically a document which is called a rubric. And the rubric is a description of what you do at each levels. You measure then performance exactly against the rubric. So the rubric has to be done quite well and iterated smartly on. Okay. The rubric is pretty hard to write because it needs to be very clear. You cannot just say, at this level, you're a good developer. At this level, you're a great developer. It doesn't really mean anything. You cannot really understand what it is. I will give you some example. So it has to describe the type of impact you have, but not be a checklist that people can just check easily, because engineers are great at gaming systems. So if you tell, hey, communication is important, everyone has to do one technical talk every quarter, people will just do it, but they will not choose the right subject, the right venue to do it, and it's not going to be useful. It's much better to tell communication, you need to have an impact on the entire company with communicating new technologies, for example. Okay, so here it's a sample rubric for a software engineer. So you can see it's a lot about the scope. For example, technical skills. Okay, you can program, but you get guidance from people. Code quality, yeah, you leave the code slightly better than it was before. Sorry? Oh yeah. Yeah, the slides are important here. Okay, so that's the first example. Okay, I will let you finish taking the pictures. Okay, the level above, senior software. So here you see we have the same values as before, but it grows more in impact in each category. For example, technical skills, now you need to be able to communicate, to evangelize technologies inside your team or best practices. Stuff like this. So my presentation actually is online. You can look at my Twitter. I just posted it. And at the end of the presentation, I have all the rubric for all the levels, both as engineers and as managers. OK, so now that you have your rubric, what you do, you need to evaluate people against it. The process we had was a performance review every quarter, every 3 months. It's very often, but when you're a startup, you move fast, you grow fast, you need to have a very a quick pace of improving for everyone. And the thing that sucks with it, it's that it requires a lot of time. Usually for each performance cycle, all managers will spend about 2 full weeks doing performance reviews. It means asking people to do self-evaluation, get 360 feedback, getting it back. Then all the managers meet together to do a harmonization to make sure that they judge people the same way in different teams, because you want performance to be rewarded the same way in every team. So it's a lot of time. And you will not be able to do this if your managers don't have a lot of people time on their schedule, and if they do too much tech stuff or too much project stuff. What is difficult is then that you need to evaluate the performance of everyone during the last 3 months. And you have a lot of bias that you need to remove. First, we have the recency bias. Usually, you just think about the last 2 weeks. You have also the persistent bias. If someone was great before or sucked before, you're going to keep in mind, OK, they are great. For example, this junior developer, oh, she was awesome at the beginning. I'm going to give her an A. But no, actually, the last 3 months, she didn't deliver anything. So then you have to be fair. That is extremely difficult and requires really a lot of self-checking. Yeah, OK, I talk about everything here. Then what we did, we had different ways to rate. We rated between 1 and 4 at some point. At some point, we just said yes or no. You can do basically whatever you want. But it's important to really have a decision about is these people above or below the bar. And the bar is actually quite high, even for junior engineers when you start. OK, then after you have this process in place, usually it takes 3 or 4 iterations to really get it to work correctly. It's what I have seen in different companies. So if you do it every 3 months, OK, in 1 year, your process should be pretty good. So after this, you want to promote people. It's really the best thing actually about managing people. The trick about this is when you promote someone, the next 3 months, they will be evaluated against the new rubric. So what you absolutely should not do is promote someone that has a good slope, but that is not really at the level yet. So to be promoted senior, you need to have delivered as a senior already. Because you don't want your rising people then to get a do not pass on the next evaluation. That would be very bad for morale. Of course, everything needs to be rated by facts, exactly like what this person has delivered, what was the impact of their work. And something about appeals, it was difficult to deal with this. Some people that have been here, for example, for a long time, senior engineers, wanted to become staff, and they give their promotion case, and it's rejected, and then they appeal. If you allow people to negotiate, it doesn't work. You can only do appeal on facts. For example, if you had the wrong information when you did your judgment, for example, you forgot about one project that this person did, or some impact was not attributed to the right person. But once you've taken your decision, you have to own it. You cannot come back on it. Something very important, performance is a very continuous process. As a manager, you have to give feedback to every team member every 2 weeks minimum, like very, very often. So that when you go to the evaluation, it's not scary. People will not learn, oh shit, actually I do not pass, I am below the bar. You should know if you are below or above the bar before the evaluation. At the evaluation, then it's just like written more on paper, and it stays for longer. Okay, hiring titles. This one is always very difficult. You have a senior person coming from another company. They believe that now they are at the staff level, so they want to have the staff title, and you know that maybe they don't want to be hired if they don't have this title. Always very difficult to do. Never give up on or give in on titles. You have to be very strict, and what you can do is, if you have a doubt about this person is above or below, you always put below. It's called a slotting, and then you say, okay, I just put you as senior. Let's see in 3 months, 6 months, if you are the level above. Because then you just promote people up. If you have to promote people down, it's horrible. Like the person will really lose credibility in the entire team. Low performance. Okay, so low performance is tough. Usually you know when you're not satisfied with someone's performance. I like the first sentence here. Some performance is not good performance. When you're really excited about someone's performance, you know it. When you're not, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to address this. Every time in my team, when I had a low performers, I thought I was being nice, trying to keep them for as long as possible, to give them a lot of feedback, to try to really teach them how to communicate better. Usually they were assholes, like smart assholes, the prima donna we talked before. But it doesn't work. I had the impression I was being nice with someone to try to keep them for a while, to make them grow. But what I didn't realize is that the entire team was suffering from the bad performance of this person. Because people were depending on tasks, because people were seeing a different expectation for different people, it doesn't create a good atmosphere in the team. And each time you remove a poor performer, the team gets better. You don't believe it before, but when it happens, it's always like this. Having, of course, a good HR person to deal with this is very important. But I see rarely funders being okay to spend money on it. But HR is extremely important. It's the most important thing your company can do. And then, if the performance really doesn't get better, you can go in a formal process, which is called the PIP. Who is familiar with PIP? Okay. It's a performance improvement plan. So it's like a formal process to help decide if the person is going to make it or if you have to let this person go. It's mandatory in some states. For example, in California, you have to prove that you really gave the person a chance and that you didn't fire them illegitimately. But it's always good to do, even if it's not legally required. Okay, so the goal of a PIP, it's usually something that happens in 3 months, for example, it's a good time, and you really put on paper exactly what needs to happen for the person to stay on the team. The goal of a PIP is you do it when you believe there is a chance. If you know that it's not going to work, maybe you can do something else to actually end the relationship earlier. A good success rate is 50% for a PIP that it will work or not. As a manager, it requires a lot of time. You need to help decide with the person what are good goals that are actionable, that are measurable, that you need to agree on them. Every week, you have to check on the progress, and the person should always know, okay, how far I am below the bar, what is my slope, and do I have a chance to make it or not? And ideally, what happens is at the end of the PIP, the employee, the engineer will tell, okay, I gave my best, but I can see I'm still below the bar, so I will leave the company and I'm okay with that. That's the goal you need to achieve. Okay, then how to fire well. Firing is always something extremely difficult, especially in Europe, where usually we don't have the same mentality about hiring, firing, market flexibility. Especially in France, it's kind of like shameful to be fired in France. But there is a way to do this in a non-negative way. Multiple things about it. So you have to treat your employees always very well during the hiring phase, when they are hired, and when you fire them. The way you behave with people is really going to show for everyone else. And people in your team will see if you're an asshole when you fire someone. So you need to help people keep faith when you fire them. You should, as much as possible, preserve their honor and their reputation. And when you do this, then your employee will feel very safe. And they will know, okay, the performance improvement plan was done correctly. The manager really gave a chance to this person. They are not bad-mouthing the person when they leave. They are actually helping them finding another job. This is extremely important to gain leadership in your team and really show that you're a badass leader that is really about people. And here I have a link to a great blog post about Jean-Louis Gasset, who worked for Apple, and he fired hundreds, if not thousands of people in his career. Really amazing guy. Okay, so now I have in my presentation a lot of extra slides about all the different processes, the performance reviews, all the details about how to do them, about the performance improve plans, and actually at the end, all the rubrics. There's a lot of stuff. Okay, about managers. Managers is, I see in a lot of companies, managers not getting enough feedback from the CTO, from the VP engineering. As a CTO, you have to spend like almost all your time on your managers, helping them grow, really showing them everything that they could have addressed better. And usually managers are happy if the project they were tasked on is delivered on time. But you have a lot of other metrics, like how much people have grown, about how good the hiring was, about how good you have dealt with poor performance. And if you're very strict with this, you can really push your managers to deal with all those tasks much better, much faster, and grow your team and your performance much better on the long term. Okay, so I will just stop here with my slides. I can go on a lot of different tangent topics about performance, feedback culture. So just let's start if we have some questions.
Any questions out there?
When you are dealing with a not very performing candidate, if you work on the performance improvement plan, how do you deal with a person that will get under a lot of stress? Because in some cases, someone will understand that this is kind of an ultimatum and this person will be working a lot harder, but in some others, that level of extra pressure might make that person even perform lower than as usual.
That's a very good point, yeah. Stress is very difficult during a performance improvement plan. So first, one thing is that it has to be secret. The rest of the team should not know it. Because once you know that a coworker had a bad performance, it will start to become a self-realizing prophecy, and you will start to not treat this person with the same respect, with the same dynamic. So it has to be secret. And then every day you have to show benevolence as a manager. You have to show you're really here to help. You have to reassure the person that they are working on the right topic, that their skills are improving, and if you see that stress is paralyzing the person, it's your role to fix this. Because otherwise, you will see, of course, that it's going to stay like that and that you are going to lose 3 months and that you're going to make this person lose 3 months as well. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Oh, my Twitter. Is it at the end? Take. Lot of slides, you see. No, okay, it's the beginning. Can you put my first slide? Yeah. Okay, and also one thing, when you start to put those processes in place in your company, the thing you don't want to happen is that it looks for all employees like some dictatorship from the VP engineering who just wants to make their own life easier. What you have to show is that you have to start from a problem. So the problem I talked before, for example, issues between old-timers and new people, issue with salaries, issue with prima donnas. And then you make your entire team realize, okay, guys, we have those problems. I have seen people suffering from this or that. How can we fix it? I have a proposition. Let's try this process. Here is the goal of this process. Here is how we're going to measure this process. And of course, it's an iteration. If something doesn't sound right, if something seems stupid, tell me, we will improve this. And then you have to get every people buy in, and then you implement. That's the way it works. If you don't do this, it's going to be horrible, and your performance review process is going to be the same one as a Fortune 500 company. And people will leave. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.